not because I want to give you a pep talk or because I want to make you feel good about yourselves. No, I'm here to tell you the truth.
All right, let's test. Do I have an echo for anybody? Let me know if you can hear an echo. I need to clean some stuff up real quick. I'm simultaneously casting on YouTube and TikTok, and I want to make sure I have an echo. I think I cleared up the echo. Tell me if we're good on TikTok and YouTube side. Super small start. Thank goodness nobody's here. So when I look horrible, I'm trying to get my show worked out that I don't look like an idiot. Of course, wouldn't it be great if I actually had somebody here? But yeah, I guess you can't have it both ways. Not a whole lot of people to see me make a mistake, but also nobody here to listen to the analysis. Here I got all this stuff to cover, and I have hardly anybody here to talk to. But that's okay. The five of us, whoever's here, will talk. So hopefully that you... I think it sounds like we're good on, for sure, we're good on TikTok side. Is anybody in YouTube able to just give me a quick post on there to see if you can hear me? Is the sound working on YouTube? I just want to get a sound check on both sides before I spend a lot of time going from Scotland. Holy crap. Thank you for checking in from Scotland. What I can't even know. What time of day? Is it nighttime over there in Scotland? That's crazy. Wow, that's a Scotland's interested. I hope so. By the way, while we're getting started, since we are getting started, it's 8:06 p.m. So yeah, it's nighttime, well after dinner, and here it's noon. So some of you may not know the channel, so let me do a brief introduction of the channel. I'm the Devil's Advocates. My name is Lee. If you see on YouTube, you actually see my name over there as well. I cover true crime, specifically high-profile cases, and I focus on the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. And I'm critical of mainstream media, law enforcement, and our judicial system. I spend a lot of time. Thank you, by the way, for the sound check on the YouTube side. I appreciate that. I spend a lot of time breaking down legal documents. I have attorneys on the show sometimes to help out and give their opinions of the legal documents and my analysis, which is what we're going to cover today. Now, today is going to be all about Luigi Mangione, because in Luigi Mangione's case, the suspected shooter of Brian Thompson in New York City on December 4th, there is a new document that was released yesterday. I did 3 hours on YouTube, 3 one-hour videos on YouTube on my breakdown, deep dive into the prosecution's response, which was an 82-page document responding to Karen Agnifilo's omnibus pretrial, an omnibus pretrial motion, but it's an omnibus motion. So I'm going to do a brief recap for anybody that might be tuning in brand new, and then I'll get right into my summary. So again, I have long form video where I broke down for 3 hours, rambling a lot about that 82-page document. This is just going to be a summary for about an hour, because that's how long it takes me to do a summary, because I'm long-winded. So again, on December 4th, 2024, a shooter shot the CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson, in the back outside of an investor conference at about 6:45 in the morning. It led to the shooter got away. It led to a huge manhunt, in which 5 days later, an individual by the name of Luigi Mangione, a 20-something-year-old, 26, 27-year-old individual, was identified as the shooter from some video footage that they recognized him from as being the shooter in New York. An arrest was made in Altoona, Pennsylvania, of which his attorney in Altoona, Pennsylvania said that arrest was illegal. They did not read Luigi Mangione his Miranda rights. He did not commit a crime, and yet they interrogated him for 17 minutes before reading his Miranda rights, and then basically illegally searched and seized his belongings. So that was the argument in Altoona, Pennsylvania, that was an illegal search and seizure. After he was arrested in Pennsylvania, New York State, and the federal government, so the state actually came in and extradited him to New York for murder in New York. That happened. He went to New York and had a humongous perp walk on the center stage with the mayor of New York showing up on to meet him at the helicopter, being surrounded by police officers and in full riot gear and machine guns, and made a huge spectacle of the whole thing. And then a state appearance to face state charges of murder in the state of New York, the federal government swooped in and charged him with murder as well. In the U.S. District Court, the Southern District of New York, in the federal court system. So Luigi Mangione currently faces 3 court systems: the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for allegedly providing false identification to a police officer and possession of a firearm. That's essentially the charges in Pennsylvania. He faces those charges. In addition, he faces murder in the state of New York against Brian Thompson by the state, and then the federal government also is charging him with murder. The state is charging him with murder in furtherance of an act of terrorism. The state does not give the death penalty to people anymore. New York State hasn't executed someone since 2012 or 2002. I can't remember. It's been a while since New York has executed anyone, and so while it's technically on the books, they don't. New Yorkers don't really believe in executing people. However, the federal government and the federal court in New York has basically reinstituted its desire to put people to death for crimes, and is using Luigi Mangione as basically their poster child for, if there's ever a case for somebody to be executed, it's this guy. And so the federal government is trying to execute him. The confusion for some people is that the terrorism charge, the part about how he killed allegedly Brian Thompson as an act of murder in furtherance of terrorism, is the state charge. You would think that would be the federal government charge. It's actually the state charge. So that's kind of a summary to bring us up where we're at, close to where we're at. So then what happened was Thomas Dickey in Pennsylvania filed a motion before the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania saying the arrest was illegal. The prosecution in Altoona, Pennsylvania, responded and said it was not illegal, and a judge has yet to weigh in on whether or not it was an illegal or a legal arrest. So both sides have made their argument to a judge in writing. It's submitted to the courts. The judge has not ruled on it. In the meantime, Karen Agnifilo, who's Luigi's attorney both in the state and federal cases in New York, has filed a similar motion that said that arrest in Altoona, Pennsylvania was illegal, and asked for a whole bunch of stuff. An omnibus motion is what she filed, which basically means it included a bunch of different things. It was requesting to suppress the arrest of Luigi Mangione, any statements that Luigi Mangione made to law officers before he was read his Miranda rights, anything that was found in his backpack, including supposedly the gun, a manifesto, a confession letter to the feds. All those things should be inadmissible because it was an illegal search and seizure and an illegal arrest in the first place. So Karen Agnifilo filed that, and she also requested that the state put their case on hold and let the federal government go first, because originally the state was going to go first, and Karen has asked for the state to put their case on hold indefinitely, if not dismiss it entirely, and just have one case, the federal government's case. So today or yesterday, the prosecution, we believe, and I'll tell you why I say we believe, the prosecution responded to Karen Agnifilo's omnibus motion to basically suppress any statements made by Luigi Mangione, suppress the evidence that was obtained on Luigi Mangione in Pennsylvania, to forego the state case and let the federal case go forth. All of those things that she argued, including constitutional violations that she said have been violations of her client's constitutional rights, all of that should be basically dismissed. And the prosecution's response, in summary, is pack sand, Karen Agnifilo. None of the points that you made are relevant. And in 82 pages, we're going to spell out in very, very clear language why nothing you just asked for should be granted by a judge. And now it's a judge's job, Judge Gregory Caro in the state of New York, to decide. He's heard Karen's argument. And now today or yesterday, he's hearing the state's argument. And then he's going to weigh in on what parts, if any, he's going to allow or disallow. Now, I said earlier that we believe the prosecution has responded. Karen Agnifilo runs a website for Luigi Mangione. It's called LuigiMangioniInfo.com. It's the official website by his attorneys, and they're tracking all of the cases and the legal proceedings. She does not have, Karen Agnifilo does not have her website updated with the prosecution's response. The prosecution's response, which I'm going to be reading from and summarizing for you today, doesn't have a stamp seal on it suggesting that it's been received by the court. However, I've been told mainstream media is already picking up on it. They're reporting on it. The site where I got it from was considered a very reputable site that has a reputation for making sure they don't put false documents out there. So there's every reason to believe, including media, this is the actual response by the prosecution, whether it's been stamped by a judge or not. So keep that in mind. Is it a draft copy that went out early? Is it the official copy? I don't know, but there's every reason to believe this is the actual response by the prosecution, in my opinion. In fact, the language is very, very legal. It includes all of the legal court cases as precedents. It's done properly. So if somebody faked this, which I have no reason to believe they faked it, it's a really good fakery, but there's no reason to believe they faked it. I believe this is 100% legit. So we're going to go from this point forward as if that's true. Over on TikTok, someone said, here in the UK, if an arrest is done incorrectly, it could end up being thrown out. Same in the US? Yes, same in the US. It could be, but it's more nuanced than that. And so, I don't know whether to get into that right now. It's a little bit more nuanced than that. As an example, the federal government in New York has a lot bigger case than just what was obtained in the arrest in Pennsylvania. So one can argue that even if the arrest in Pennsylvania is deemed illegal, the prosecution in New York is still going to go forward because they believe they've got enough evidence on Luigi Mangione. They don't need to have the manifesto and the gun and all these things. They don't need to have those items. They've already got them on video footage and surveillance and his tracking online, things that he said publicly. They've already got him 6 ways to Sundays, so they don't need that. Do they want it? Absolutely, they want it. Do they need it? No. Also, it's a little bit more nuanced because even if the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania declares that that was an illegal arrest, New York may decide that it was a legal arrest. And so they may have to fight the whole constitutionality of that arrest in Pennsylvania in New York. So it's kind of complex. But the short answer, and I never give short answers, it seems like, is yes, it's very similar to the UK in that the whole case could get, all the evidence, not the case, all the evidence that was obtained can be thrown out if it was an illegal arrest, which would mean any confession that he made, any confession letter, any notebook that he had, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so you're all up to date. We got a relatively small audience. I will be, therefore, because it's a small audience, I will be paying more attention to the chat. So let me know if you have anything. On YouTube, I can actually pin your comment and it'll be on screen for everybody to see. So if you've got some embarrassment to having something you wrote pinned, if I'm going to comment on it, I might pin it so people can see what it was. On the TikTok side, it's not so easy. I'm sorry you have a double image up there. In fact, I can probably take care of that. Do I need to take care of that? Should I take care of that? Let's hide that. There we go. Yeah, that's just something that's different rather than seeing my face on there twice. And were you getting double audio? So you guys said there wasn't. Let me make sure on TikTok, real quick before I start getting, I'm going to do the summary. Let me make sure on TikTok that I didn't just kill the audio. Do you hear me? Do you guys hear me still on TikTok? Audio is good. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that very much. All right, here we go. Let me start out by saying this. Please do not shoot the messenger. A lot of you who follow my channel are hoping that Luigi Mangione is innocent or that he's going to go free. And so when I present to you what is a very brutal document, keep in mind two things. One, don't shoot the messenger. This is the prosecution's response, and I'm giving you a summary of how the prosecution responded and what their argument is. Their argument is brutal. It makes it look like, without a question, Luigi Mangione is guilty. So let me clarify this one more time. The prosecution's position makes it look like, without a doubt, Luigi Mangione is guilty. So now it's going to become a different question. And as Pinky said on TikTok, that's their job. I told some people at the very beginning of this, if you're emotionally invested in this case, it's going to be a roller coaster for you. Because one day you're going to hear something, you're going, oh my God, it's over for Luigi. He's cooked. They're going to kill him. He's going to be, they're going to execute him. He's done. And then you're going to hear the defense respond, and you're going to have a high. Oh my gosh, go get him, Karen Agnifilo. She's got it in the bag. He's going to walk out the door tomorrow. Just relax. Relax. You are in for a long haul. This is going to be an emotional roller coaster if you are invested emotionally. So try to take some emotions back and just listen. I'm now going to tell you in detail what the prosecution has said, and it's going to be brutal. So bear with me. I'm only the messenger telling you what my opinion of the prosecution's position is. So this is a document with, I'm not going to show the document online. I have 3 hours of a breakdown with the actual document and highlighted portions. So I'm not going to show that again right now on YouTube and TikTok for this short summary. Joel Seidman is the one who basically wrote the document. He's the assistant DA and senior trial counsel, according to the argument, and he has a 82-page argument against Karen Agnifilo's omnibus motion. Keep in mind, some of that is appendices, so it's not all 82 pages of argument, but some of it's appendices. The appendices, by the way, are really, really brutal. So why is it brutal? Because they've got scanned images. They got photocopied images of the alleged notebook that Luigi Mangione wrote in his own handwriting. If there are indeed his handwriting, it's bad. So let me just get that out of the way. But again, there's a bigger conversation going on, so stay with me. When I saw that, thank you so much. I'm going to pin that comment, Renee. Thank you so much. So here we go. The response to the omnibus motion basically contains the following things. Karen made a motion to suppress statements that were made to law enforcement because his Miranda rights hadn't been read. Karen had asked for suppression of the physical evidence, i.e. the gun, the confession letter, and the manifesto primarily that was in Luigi Mangione's backpack allegedly. Karen Agnifilo asked all of that to be suppressed because it was an illegal search and seizure. Karen Agnifilo also requested or moved for the preclusion of non-eyewitness identification testimony. Basically what that means is they used a combination of the manager of McDonald's saying that she recognized the person in her lobby as the shooter in New York, and the police officers who arrived on scene who quote unquote immediately recognized Luigi Mangione as the shooter in New York. And Karen said they're not facial experts, facial recognitions. That's for a jury to decide if Luigi Mangione is the same shooter in New York, not for law enforcement. And in fact, you letting law enforcement say, I know this is the guy and I recognized him, is prejudicial. It tells the jury that they think somehow you have a better determination than they do on whether or not he's the guy. So she asked them to not do that. And then the last thing, essentially, that Karen Agnifilo had asked, the main one, was a dismissal of the indictment in the state case. Basically, she said it's a violation of her client's constitutional rights to be tried both in the federal government and the state in New York at the same time, and that defending himself in one case can hamper his ability to defend himself properly in the other case. And so she asked that the state either dismiss their case entirely or postpone it indefinitely and wait for the federal case. Now, it has originally been stated that the state would go first and the federal government will wait, and they will try Luigi Mangione after the state. So Karen Agnifilo is asking for the opposite to happen. She is asking for the state to put their thing on hold, if not drop it entirely, and to let the federal government go first. So that's what is going to be responded to, and the response by the prosecution is basically a collective FU Karen Agnifilo. None of those points we're going to accept. None of them. So, and again, this is a request from the prosecution. So Karen has asked the judge, please dismiss all this information. The prosecution has said, please don't listen to a damn thing that Karen just said. All of that's incorrect, and here's why. And now a judge has to read through all that and make a ruling on it. So that's where we're at on this. Now let's talk about what the prosecution has. It's brutal. I said that a bunch of times, so hold on. One, the prosecution states categorically the Altoona arrest did not violate Luigi Mangione's rights, even though he was not read his Miranda rights. They don't actually explain, like they do in most things in this document, why they say it. They just say, no, his constitutional rights were not violated, and we will be happy to have a Huntley hearing. A Huntley hearing is a hearing before a judge where both sides can argue about whether or not that was a legal arrest. So basically that was point one. The point one was, no, we do not agree with Karen Agnifilo that it was an illegal arrest, and we're willing to have a trial about it before the judge on whether or not that was an illegal arrest. That's point one. Also, point two, there was no illegal search and seizure of his backpack, and we're willing to fight that in a map hearing. So that also is another quick and dirty, we disagree. His constitutional rights of illegal search and seizure were not violated, and rather than explain to you why, we're willing to have a hearing before the judge, and both sides can fight it out before a judge. So that's how it starts out. Starts out pretty light. It gets worse. Thirdly, there was nothing wrong with the officers identifying Luigi Mangione as the shooter. So again, quick and dirty. There's not a big explanation. And then Then we start out where it starts to get brutal. So at the start of the document, the prosecution starts to lay out statements of fact. So this is what they're saying. They say right off the bat, this is not a complete statement of fact. This is a summary of pertinent facts that are needed for this particular response. There's more facts. These are just the facts that are pertinent to this response. Some of this are shocking, in my opinion. Shocking, in my opinion, details. New details we've never heard before. At least I have never heard before, and I've been following this case from day one. Now, granted, I tend not to go too far down rabbit holes. You probably disagree with me if you've been watching my stuff. I tend to look for stuff that's vetted real well. So maybe some of this has been rumored for a while. I tend to only follow things that I feel have some real meat to it. So as far as I'm concerned, some of these details are brand new, and they're really, really shocking details in a lot of ways. All right, so here we go. Thomas, first of all, what was interesting is Thompson was only shot twice, once in the back, once in the leg. We've been told multiple times the gunman fired 3 times. There was 3 casings left at the scene. We did see early indications, by the way, that something was off about the 3 bullet casings, because it was referred to in an earlier document, and I caught it and I said, what the hell does that mean? That there were 2 casings and a bullet left. So it is now clear Brian Thompson was only hit with 2 bullets, two bullets, and that left behind 2 empty casings. The 3rd bullet was an unfired bullet that was ejected and left at the scene. So that's some clarification. Some of you may have already known that. Some of you may have already figured it out. I started to hypothesize about it when they talked about 2 casings in a bullet, but that's clarified now. Brian Thompson was only shot twice, once in the back, once in the leg, and there was an unexpended round on the ground. The shooter, according to the prosecution, left his fingerprints on the cell phone that he dropped, on the water bottle, and the Kind Bar wrapper. So his fingerprints are literally all over the scene, is what they're basically saying. Also, and this was a shocking new piece of information for me, something that I had never heard. According to them, the shooter, who they said is Luigi Mangione, chewed a piece of chewing gum and left it in his backpack. So they have his DNA in a piece of chewing gum in the backpack. Now, I don't know what to make of that. It's literally like, here, have my DNA. I'm gonna leave you some chewing gum with my saliva so you can get a real good DNA profile. I don't know what to make of that. That's what they're saying, and it may be true. My wife said, well, maybe, my wife says, maybe he's a neat freak and he couldn't find a garbage can at the time. So he chewed his gum. He wanted to spit it out, didn't know where to put it. So he wrapped it up in a wrapper and he put it in his backpack and didn't think about them using it as DNA evidence. All right. That's possible. I'm not mocking my wife. I'm just saying that is possible. Here's another detail that was new in the prosecutions, in my opinion, the actual details of how Brian Thompson was killed and when he died. The bullet that killed Brian Thompson entered the left side of his back, piercing his liver, went through the heart, and exited the front side of his chest. That is details I'm not sure we've been given in the public. We've never been told, as far as I know, about the autopsy report. So now they have spelled out exactly what killed him. Of course, it wasn't the leg shot. It was the back shot. And they said, again, one more time, because I don't want to be accused of being graphic for the sake of being graphic. It entered the left side of the back, piercing the liver, went through the heart, and exited the front side of his chest. Brian Thompson died at the scene before EMS arrived. That was something that I questioned in the long form video. I questioned it because I had read or remember hearing that Brian Thompson died in the hospital 30 minutes later and that Officer Diaz was there. I remember reading about the death of Brian Thompson at the hospital 30 minutes later. I believe now I have figured out what my confusion was. I believe that the death was pronounced at the hospital 30 minutes later. So he died at the scene. These would reconcile both facts. Brian Thompson was already deceased by the time EMS arrived, but he wasn't pronounced dead until the hospital 30 minutes later. So that would explain both of those situations. Let's continue on. The shooter did not say anything to Brian Thompson before shooting. That's a detail that, I wasn't sure, because you got a silent audio, so you don't know. Did he say anything? Hey, whatever. Did he call anything out to him? According to them, he did not say anything to Brian Thompson. The shooter did not, it was not a robbery or a vendetta. This is a huge part of the prosecution's case. This was not a robbery, and it wasn't anything personal. And the reason why that's important to the prosecution is the setting up of the argument that it's an act of terrorism. He targeted Brian Thompson not because of who he was or what he did to him or anything like that. He targeted him because of what he represented, which was a representative and a leader of the healthcare industry. That's why Brian Thompson was targeted. Therefore, their argument is this is an act of terrorism. It was targeted against an individual for their position and what they represent, not because of a robbery or anything like that. And they beat that home over and over again because they say over and over, Brian Thompson had a Rolex on and the shooter didn't take his Rolex. It wasn't a robbery. Any kind of argument, they're basically setting up ahead of time. Any kind of argument that the defense might come up with this was a simple robbery. It's not a robbery. His Rolex was on him. It was left behind. He was targeted because of what he represents. Also, it was clear that he was shot and he was targeted by what he represented, by when and where it happened. It happened on purpose to send a message by shooting him outside of an investor conference, in particular in the media capital of the world in New York. So those were messages that were supposed to be sent. Therefore, again, raising this to the level of an act of terrorism, because it's not a simple act of violence. It's not an individual vendetta. It was an act against an insurance industry executive on the center stage of the world, in the media capital of the world, at an investor conference, in particular to send a message. And they're going to document that. That's where it gets brutal in that document, is they document why that's true. New details. And by the way, we're going to read, I'm just trying to find where I have it in here. I've got a section. I'm going to read you actual quotes. I'm not going to show it on screen, but I'm going to read it coming up. Actual quotes that they say were written by Luigi Mangione. That's where it gets super brutal, because if you do believe that Luigi Mangione wrote those things, there's really no question about whether he did or didn't do it if you believe he wrote those things. So if it's true that he wrote them, the tough pill to swallow is there's not any question anymore about what he did and why he did it. Now the question is going to be, how do you feel about it? And what do we do next? So Luigi this was crazy. This was a crazy new detail. According to the prosecution, Luigi Mangione is seen on surveillance camera the night before the shooting, walking by the hotel where Brian Thompson is staying, and he's talking on his cell phone, and Brian Thompson passes Luigi Mangione on the street walking in the opposite direction. The two men literally passed each other the night before Brian Thompson's murder. That was a new information, new details, and it's kind of shocking. I don't know why it's necessarily shocking, other than we never heard that before. But apparently, Luigi Mangione, Brian Thompson literally crossed paths the night before the shooting. Luigi Mangione allegedly, this is another piece of information that I think is relatively new, and it leads to a lot of stuff we could riff on. I don't know that we're going to riff on it now. I'm watching my time. We're about a half hour in. I want to keep this to about an hour, so we'll see where we're at when I get done with this. Luigi Mangione allegedly entered the Hilton at 5:52 a.m. and left at 6 a.m. and then laid in wait at 6:22 a.m. Let me clarify why I made it clear about the Hilton. Brian Thompson was staying at the hotel across from the Hilton. The Hilton is where the investor conference was being held. Brian Thompson was staying, I think, at the Marriott next to the Hilton. So Luigi Mangione, when he showed up, according to the prosecution, went into the Hilton, came back out, and then waited outside the Hilton, and then Brian Thompson showed up. Now, why is that all important? There's an argument to be made, and I'll be relatively brief about it here. You'd have to watch all my other videos, including the video I made about this letter that Luigi Mangione allegedly sent called Tales from MDC, the Meddler, in which he refers to a cockroach that showed up unexpectedly, and he crushed it. I had indicated in there, what if that was some kind of weird metaphor for he showed up at the investor conference to do something. It wasn't specific what he was going to do exactly or who he was going to do it to, but then Brian Thompson showed up out of nowhere, surprising him, and he took the opportunity. If that's the case, some of this would make sense, that Luigi Mangione showed up, allegedly, went into the Hilton where the investor conference is taking place, waited outside for perhaps a target to arrive, and may have been surprised by Brian Thompson coming out of the Marriott. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And if you want further information on that and you want to go down that, watch my video about the Tales from MDC, the Meddler, and my analysis of that. The casings, they said the bullet casings had black marker on them. There's no mention of etching on the bullets. This is interesting because originally I had heard that the words deny, defend, delay were written, etched into the bullets. Then I heard they were written in Sharpie. Then I heard both. They were written in Sharpie and etched in, or they were etched in and then written over in Sharpie. This document only says they were written in Sharpie. And in fact, by the way, as a small point of interest, they actually said the words included the word delay and defend or depose. Sorry. And den, I think they put in quotes because I think it was supposed to be deny, but the Y we can presume was rubbed off. And so it actually just said DEN, and they refer to it all the time as den. But they do say that they believe it was a reference to deny, delay, depose, defend. Again, the words are a little bit different. There was a book that was of the similar title. The bullets had a slightly different set of wordings, and one of the bullets had den instead of deny, but they believe it was supposed to be deny. Hey, Thicker, thanks for saying hi over there on the TikTok side. So I think, yes, Kim, I think the most logical thing is deny. The Y had simply rubbed off, and that's why that's the case. We're going to get back to Renee's question here in a little bit. I'll pin that up there for the moment for you guys to take a look at it. So maybe you guys can remind me if I don't get to that in a second. We did confirm, according to, here's something that has been rumored and said over and over again on internet and TikTok ad nauseum by people, which is, do the ballistics don't match? That's what a lot of people on TikTok are saying. The ballistics don't match, people. Luigi Mangione is going to walk. Do you hear that the ballistics don't match? Well, the prosecution's response today is 100% the ballistics match. Ballistic tests were done. The casings were fired by the very gun found in Luigi Mangione's possession. That is now their official position. Now, again, keep in mind, all of these things are going to have to be debated in a court of law, and experts may be brought in to debate the forensics, but the position of the prosecution officially is, yes, the ballistics do match. It's the same gun that fired the shots against Brian Thompson that was found on Luigi Mangione in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and they're saying that they have confirmed that. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm repeating their position. And again, as someone pointed from the very beginning, the job of the prosecution is to make their argument as strong as possible. The job of the defense is to make their argument as strong as possible, and it's for the jury or the judge to decide what really happened. Trial dates, Pinky, will have to get back to that. Pink will have to get back to the trial date question in a little bit. I'm almost done with the summary. It's so sad that the YouTube side is so small. We got more followers than ever on the YouTube side, and we're sitting here struggling to get a half a dozen people in here. But hey, let's keep going. All right. So a big part of this, they also said that they have confirmed Luigi Mangione had $7,800 in U.S. cash, some foreign currency, which I believe was listed earlier as somewhere around $2,000, and a passport, which they may be suggesting that was evidence that Luigi Mangione was planning on fleeing the country. The passport and the cash would indicate maybe that he was planning on fleeing, which they probably would use to try to argue that he's a flight risk. Now, the prosecution at the beginning of this document, oddly enough, refers to the spiral notebook that was allegedly in Luigi Mangione's backpack. And again, whether that's admissible or in court is still up for debate, because we have to find out if a judge agrees that that was an illegal arrest and an illegal search and seizure. But the backpack contained a spiral notebook. Now, here's something I want to point out to you. Again, from my fair analysis of the position of this case, is to tell you the defense, Karen Agnifilo, and I think Thomas Dickey, are not arguing that there is a notebook in Luigi Mangione's possession. What they said was that is Luigi Mangione's personal notes and a diary. That is bothersome for people who hold the position that Luigi Mangione 100% is not guilty and didn't do it and he's being framed, because they're admitting, his attorneys are essentially admitting, yes, he did have a notebook in his possession that essentially they're saying is his, but it was a personal diary and it's not a manifesto. At the beginning of the prosecution's document, they refer to that spiral notebook as a diary, but then from there on out, the rest of the way, they called it a manifesto. So I just thought it was interesting. At the very beginning, they said, okay, this was a diary. We've got some scanned pages from the diary in here, but this manifesto said this, and this manifesto said this, and there. So at some point, they changed their mind from diary to manifesto, and we can get into the nuance of that some other time. Now, here's where I want you to be. Put on your big boy pants, or whatever you want to say. I'm going to read to you some of those quotes that come right out of supposedly Luigi Mangione's notebook. Now, this is going to be difficult reading. Some of this stuff, oddly enough, some of this stuff was leaked into the press in a limited fashion early on. Oddly enough, the parts that it was argued by his defense and others that you're only giving select portions to show to the media and to the public, and not the whole context. Here's the bad part. The whole context is worse than the part that they showed on the media. That's my takeaway. It's much worse when you read it in context than it was for the little snippets that were pulled out. All right. Here it is. We're going to read a little bit about this for the end of for the next 20 minutes here or so. The entry in Luigi Mangione's alleged diary, dated August 15, 2024, reads in the pertinent part as follows, quote, "I finally feel confident about what I will do. The details are coming together and I don't feel any doubt about whether it's right or justified." There's a bad one for you people. If Luigi Mangione wrote this, he's admitting he doesn't feel there's anything wrong with what he's about to do. It's justified. He has no doubt in his mind that what he's going to do is justified. That is really close to an admission of guilt, right? This is what I'm going to do, and I have no doubt that this is right and justified to do. Continuing on with his quote, again, allegedly this is what he wrote. This could be argued in court. "I'm glad in a way that I procrastinated because," by the way, because is written BC. Would Luigi Mangione abbreviate because as BC? I don't know. That's for another discussion. "I'm glad in a way that I procrastinated because it allowed me to learn more about United Healthcare. KMD would have been an unjustified catastrophe that would be perceived mostly as sick, but more importantly, unhelpful." I'm trying to remember what the KMD is, what it stands for. I think it was some kind of like, if innocents got killed, if he had done something instead of the way he did it, allegedly, innocent people would have gotten hurt, and it would have been perceived as mostly sick and not helpful. It would do nothing, he said, to spread awareness and improve people's lives. The target is insurance. It checks every box. That is a damning paragraph if indeed written by Luigi Mangione, because what it shows is exactly what the prosecution is arguing. Luigi Mangione intended this to be a justified killing, a justified homicide that was going to improve people's lives. He wanted to make sure he didn't hurt innocents. He was going after somebody he didn't think was innocent, and he did it for the purpose of, quote unquote, spreading awareness and improving people's lives. Why is it important? Because the prosecution's statement is, he specifically said he did this to spread awareness. He wanted to make a public statement. Therefore, calling it a manifesto because he intended the public to get involved in this case is not a stretch. That's exactly what Luigi Mangione intended, according to the prosecution's logic. Continuing on with difficult paragraph again. On October 22nd, 2024, approximately 1.5 months before, and by the way, I'm not watching my comments right now because I'm reading so much, so I'm not going to be seeing comments at the moment. On October 22nd, 2024, approximately 1.5 months before Brian Thompson's assassination, the defendant again stated his motives for the assassination. Defendant wrote in his journal, basically, 1.5 months. That's how far out it is. "The investor conference is a true windfall. It embodies everything wrong with our health system. And most importantly, the message becomes self-evident. The problem with most revolutionary acts is that the message is lost on normies." That's you and me, right? We're normies. For example, Ted K., which we believe is Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. For example, Ted K. makes some good points on the future of humanity, but to make his point, he indiscriminately mail bombs innocents. Normies categorize him as an insane serial killer, focusing on the act and atrocities themselves, and dismiss his ideas. And most importantly, by committing indiscriminate atrocities, he becomes a monster, which makes his ideas those of a monster, no matter how true. He crosses the line from revolutionary anarchist to terrorist, the worst thing a person can be. This, again, is enormously damaging for Luigi Mangione if indeed he wrote it, because what it is essentially, almost no other way to word it, writing down that he wanted to make sure that his message was not perceived as the act of some crazy monster, that people would understand that it was a justifiable homicide. That is what the prosecution is saying. Luigi wanted people to figure it out. He wanted people to figure out that this was a justifiable homicide. And he called himself a revolutionary anarchist. I did a video today, by the way, of why I believe that the FBI has investigated me, and why I really honestly believe it's possible the FBI investigated me recently about Luigi Mangione because of this very statement right here, and a revolutionary anarchist. That's something I was asked if I was, and I think it was probably by somebody in the FBI, but that sounds like crazy conspiracy theory. But anyways, I made a video about that for my members only, because it's not something I want to put out there in detail for the public, because it's got details about people's names and stuff like that is for a smaller audience. All right. So that's a difficult paragraph. Paragraph number 29. Defendant continues. This is a quote again from Luigi Mangione. This is a problem with most militants that rebel against often real injustices. They commit an atrocity whose horror either outweighs the impact of their message, or whose distance from their message prevents normies from connecting the dots. Consequently, the revolutionary idea becomes associated with extremism, incoherence, or evil, an idea that no reasonable member of society could approve of. Rather than win public support, they lose it. The revolutionary actions are actively counterproductive. This paragraph, again, is extremely difficult if Luigi wrote that, because what it basically is saying is Luigi Mangione wanted to make sure that everyone in America figured out what the shooting's purpose was, and that they didn't view him as a monster, that they understood that this was a justifiable act of homicide. And he wants the public to be able to figure that out. That's what the prosecution is telling us. Luigi Mangione wanted to make sure that normies like you and me didn't mistake him for being a monster, but that we realized what it really was, and that we would have the bigger conversation about healthcare in America, instead of making it look like this is all about a guy who killed an innocent man and father of two, which is how the media is trying to share it right now. Position number 30, or paragraph number 30. Defendant went on to ask himself, quote, supposedly from Luigi Mangione's notebook, so say you want to rebel against the deadly greed-fueled health insurance cartel. Do you bomb their headquarters? No. Bombs equal terrorism. Such actions appear the unjustified anger of someone who simply got sick or had bad luck and took their frustration out on the insurance industry while recklessly endangering countless employees. Again, the argument here being made is that Luigi Mangione is sensitive to his message. If I just bomb something and innocent people get killed, everyone's going to see this as just terrorism. And it's not terrorism. This is an act of self-defense. It's an act to save lives. All of those things that I've been saying, what if the shooter was doing this to save lives? Is there a self-defense case to be made in this case? We have yet to know what Karen Agnifilo is going to do with this. Is Karen Agnifilo going to concede that her client did it, but it was justifiable homicide? Oh my gosh, we're in for a big one if that's going to be the case. Holy shit. Or is she going to maintain my client wasn't there, he wasn't guilty? Or is she going to, as the prosecution is trying to hint, possibly go for some kind of mental insanity thing? Oh, my client wasn't in his right mind. By the way, the prosecution is preemptively trying to cut that off at the pass by saying the judge should rule that it's too late for them to bring up an insanity defense if they should do so. Now, it may be true the defense never intended to bring up insanity. The prosecution may be trying to prejudice the public by saying, oh, I bet you she's going to go for the insanity plea. That's all she has left. There's no doubt that her client did it. So the only thing she's got left is he must have been insane. So that's what they're trying to pre-position or precondition us to believe ahead of time. This is all posturing, in my opinion, by the prosecution. And these are my opinions. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an official of any kind. I'm giving you my opinions as an armchair YouTuber / TikToker, social media jackass. So let's continue. Number 31. Defendant decided that instead of carrying out a bombing, one should, and this is another quote, super difficult, a quote allegedly from Luigi Mangione from his notebook, which they are calling the Manifesto, quote, one should, quote, whack the CEO at the annual parasitic bean counter convention. It's targeted, that's key to the prosecution's defense, it's targeted, precise, and doesn't risk innocence. Most importantly, the point is self-evident. The point is made in the news headline, quote, insurance CEO killed at annual investor conference, unquote. It brings to light the event itself. A bunch of suits from JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley meeting at a fancy New York City conference is to discuss the growth rations and MLR, we'll describe what that means in a minute, of a company that literally extracts human life force for money. It conveys a greedy bastard that had it coming. Members of the public can focus on greed, on the event through reasonable, acceptable discussion. Finally, the hit is a real blow to the company financials. All those analysts and institutional investors who come to be wooed by insurance execs, that opportunity is snuffed in an instant. Instead, the company becomes a hot topic. Perhaps best to invest elsewhere and let that one cool off. Motive, 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 motive. This is them saying, Luigi Mangione made it clear. I shot Brian Thompson to send a message to investors in healthcare that they should find a better place to invest their money. By the way, investors in United Healthcare are lining up to sue United Healthcare for not making good on all the ridiculous profits they were promised because of the very thing that basically Luigi is saying. Investors would have invested their money somewhere else if they knew that United Healthcare stock was going to take a beating. So maybe you investors, is what the message that they're saying to Luigi is trying to get out. Maybe you investors should find a better place to invest your money than health insurance, because this thing is coming down. This system's coming down. That's kind of their argument, that this is Luigi's motivation. He wanted to make a statement. He wanted normies like you and I to figure it out by the fact that it was done in front of a hotel. And I would argue, if that's the case, we did figure it out. Right off the bat, many people were going, oh my God, that somebody's pissed off at the health insurance industry. That message was sent loud and clear, if indeed that was what was supposed to happen. And again, this isn't an Oklahoma City bombing situation, right? Where Timothy McVeigh allegedly blows up an entire federal building and kills a bunch of innocent people. And we're left to wonder, was that an attack against the US government, or was that an attack against innocent people? He's a monster. He killed children, which is what that became about. This is kind of like the exact opposite. Luigi is basically arguing, don't become a Timothy McVeigh, a Unabomber who kills innocent people, and then it all becomes about what a monster they are instead of the message, which is that something needs to be done about the health insurance industry. And they talk about here the MLR that he talks about is the medical loss ratio. Why does it matter? MLR is a comparison of how much your premium goes towards paying medical claim compared to how much insurer pays for administrative costs that are kept as profits. So basically, it's a focus on the money. And this investor conference was talking about how good are our profits going to be? How much money are we going to make off of the American public? That's what the argument is. That's what's at stake here. Luigi Mangione wanted people to focus on concepts like MLR and profits over people. Photocopies of the defendant's manifesto are contained in his red notebook and are attached to Exhibit A, sorry. And I would show that on screen if I was sharing my screen, but I'm not sharing my screen, so I won't share my screen. All right, what are we doing on time? We got about 10 minutes or so. I think I got a few more quotes. At the time of the defendant's arrest by Altoona Police Department, his possessions also included a note addressed to the FBI that read as follows. Here's a quote. If Luigi Mangione wrote this. Now, I don't believe Karen Agnifilo has addressed the confession letter. She has addressed, I think, the notebook and has called it his diary. Whether she's acknowledged this confession letter, I don't know. Here's the confession letter, supposedly in Luigi's own handwriting. To the feds. I'll keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country. To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly I wasn't working with anyone. This was fairly trivial, some elementary social engineering, basic CAD, a lot of patience. The spiral notebook, if present, has some straggling notes and to-do lists that illuminate the gist of it. My tech is pretty locked down because I work in engineering, so probably not much info there. I do apologize for any strife or trauma, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming. A reminder, the US has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank 42 in life expectancy. UHC is the 5th largest company in the United States by market cap, behind only Apple, Google, and Walmart. It has grown and grown, but has our life expectancy? No. The reality is these mafioso have simply gotten too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it. Obviously, the problem is more complex, but I do not have the space, and frankly, I do not pretend to be the most qualified person to lay out the full argument. But many have illuminated the corruption and greed, e.g. Rosenthal and more, decades ago. And the problem simply remains. It is not an issue of awareness at this point, but clearly power games at play. Evidently, I am the first to face it with such brutal honesty. P.S. You can check serial numbers to verify this is all self-funded, my own ATM withdrawals. So again, that confession letter, if it indeed is a confession letter, and if it is indeed left with written by Luigi Mangione, it leaves the defense very few options, which is to basically just say, okay, he's guilty, but you have to do it legally. And so if the arrest was illegal, you can't use that information or whatever. It could lead them to a self-defense argument. Yes, he did it, but he was doing it to save lives. And so therefore it's self-defense or a defense of others argument. I've talked about that at length in many different things. But if it's truly a confession letter, it's horrible. Now, I want to point out one more thing I said in my long form video at the last part of part 3. Keep in mind, and I'm not saying that's the case here because I have to preface everything I say. Keep in mind, false confessions are given all the time in this country. I think Netflix has a special or had a special on false confessions. And a lot of people in America think that if you wrote a confession letter, you did it. Or if you said a confession on tape, you did it. Police coerce confessions all the time. So is it possible Luigi Mangione was compelled to write a confession letter in some regard? It's possible. Will the defense argue that? Hey, yeah, sure, you've got a confession letter in Luigi Mangione's handwriting, but you coerced it out of him. You tortured him in prison, whatever the case may be. And again, I'm using hypotheticals. I'm not saying any of that has said. The question becomes, we don't know what the defense is going to say about this confession letter. Is it a legit confession letter? Are they going to concede to it? Or are they going to say, that was a confession written under duress because you guys had him locked up and you told him he's going away and we're going to give you the death penalty, and maybe you coerced him into giving a confession letter to make it go easier on him. We don't know. And I'm not speculating that it's one way or another. The last thing I want to say, by the way, because I think we're running out of time, is I'm terrified as a YouTuber and a TikToker, more so as a YouTuber, that I'm not going to be allowed to continue to cover this case, or they're going to shut my account off, or they're going to demonetize it. And some of you would say, well, who cares if you get demonetized? Just keep saying your piece. And that's fine and dandy, except for I will have to go back to work full time then because I can't, if I don't have supplemental, I've got to go back to work full time. And so if they demonetize me, because what happened was in this document, the prosecution makes it clear, anyone in America who tries to have the bigger conversation about how bad healthcare is in this country is sick and demented. And they didn't say it in this document, but I already know where it's going. They're going to tell you you're a terrorist sympathizer. So if Luigi Mangione is a terrorist, and they've already said over and over again in this document, he is a terrorist, it absolutely is an act of terrorism. And therefore, if you are sympathetic with him, by definition, that makes you a terrorist sympathizer. And so will people like myself be allowed to have open and frank discussions about how bad the healthcare system is in America, the open and frank discussions about, do we understand why somebody might take an action like this? Are we allowed to ask those questions? Or will we be humiliated and beaten down in the public and told that you are a disgusting and vile human being for even suggesting there could be any justification for what he did, which is kill an innocent man and father of 2? That is what that document wants to tell you. No one is allowed to talk about this because you are a disgusting, vile human being for talking about the health insurance industry. This isn't about the health insurance industry. It's about a man shooting an innocent man. So I just cross my fingers, people, that I'm allowed to continue to cover this case and tell you how I feel about it without getting punished. I'm trusting, I'm betting my career on it, if you will, that we're allowed to have those discussions as long as we do it carefully. That there's no call to action, that we're not telling people to go out and do any acts of violence, that we're saying, look, we're just having a conversation. You can tell me all day long you think I'm a reprehensible, disgusting human, vile human being. Call me every name in the book that you want. Just don't tell me I don't have the right to say what I feel. And you have the right to call me an asshole if you want to. So that's the gist. Let me look through some questions now and see if there's anything I can answer for the last 7 to 10 minutes here at this place. My question, Renee says, is why did he plead not guilty in the first place? I will tell you my answer. I've said it before, but maybe you haven't heard me say it before. And even if you did, it's good for the general public. Any defense attorney worth their weight in this entire country will tell you, I don't care if you did it or not, you plead not guilty. This forces the prosecution to make their case. I talked to an attorney today, and their argument was, as a defense attorney, as a defense attorney, I'm not defending the actions of my client. I'm defending the constitutional rights of human beings. I'm defending the Constitution. I'm defending the rule of law. I'm defending how things are done. I don't, in essence, my job isn't to care whether or not my client did it or not. My job is to make sure that we have a fair and impartial legal process. And you have to prove it in a court of law by correct manner and correct means. And if you do so, great on you. You did your job. But somebody there, the criminal defense attorneys in this country, are there to make sure that the legal process is handled correctly. Because if it isn't handled correctly, it's a slippery slope. Everyone in America is going to get jailed for whatever the hell they want to accuse you of, because nobody's there defending our rights. And unfortunately, you have to defend some bad guys' rights from time to time if you want to protect the good guys' rights. Because if you let it creep because you don't like this guy, we'll just let it slide. We'll do some illegal shady shit to convict this guy because he's a bad guy. If you do that, then someday they're going to come for you when you're a good guy, and they're going to be like, hey, we're just going to do the same thing we always do. We'll just bend a few rules. It'll be okay. This is why I believe in the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law, and defend it vehemently. All right. Any other questions? I'm looking here on both sides. Pin something on TikTok if you got something for me, and I'll continue to look on YouTube and I'll look over here to see if there's anything pinned. Pretty Princess says, you have the right to make the state prove their case regardless of guilt. You should be a criminal defense attorney. That's exactly correct. Exactly correct. The state must prove their case, and somebody needs to hold them accountable to make sure that they did it correctly. That's the job of a defense attorney. This is why I love having defense attorneys on my show, to give you the legal and behind the scenes factual feelings of how defense attorneys view these cases. What about, this is from TikTok, what about the thumb drive? Was it mentioned? It was not mentioned directly, so no, we don't know. As Luigi Mangione allegedly said in a letter, my tech is pretty locked down. He probably has an encrypted thumb drive. The government, if they want to break into encrypted devices, as an aside, oh my God, did you know this in a free country, this drives me nuts. Did you know that I have read that in our country, it is illegal to have an encryption standard that is beyond a certain bits of encryption. And the question can be, why does it matter? Why is there a limit? Because essentially what they're saying is the government wants to make it illegal for you to encrypt something that they can't break. So they set a limit on how badly something can be encrypted, because the government's telling you, without telling you, we can break that level of encryption. So it's illegal to use any higher level of encryption than XYZ because we can't break that easily. So they try to make it against the law for you to use an encryption that they can't break, as an FYI and aside. Let's see what else we got here. Critical thinking and broadening your perspective is something lacking in today's society. Questions help us examine ourselves, our biases, and the world around us. Keep talking. Thank you, LB. There's a lot of people who hate what I do. There's a lot of people who hate what I say. There's people that call me moron every single day. I have gotten thicker and thicker skin as the week has gone by. I'm a people pleaser. I have a hard time when people don't like me and they tell me they don't like me. But I am quickly learning. Jay Shetty, I think, on YouTube has given me great advice. You can't control what people think about you. And furthermore, if they've decided they don't like you, there is nothing you can say that will change their opinion. So let it go. If you don't like me, you don't like me. End of story. I'm going to stop taking it so personal. If you don't like me, you don't like me. It is what it is. I totally get that the state or feds must prove their case, but imagine if Mangione didn't come from wealth and he had to use a public defender. This case would look completely different. Yes, unfortunately, Renee, you couldn't have said it better. That is an unfortunate part of our legal system in America. The reality is, in my opinion, the more money you have, the better defense you have. People are not treated equally. Money does buy the best lawyers in the country. And so when you can afford the best lawyers, your chances of getting away with whatever you did exponentially increase the more money you have. So Luigi Mangione having money and a defense fund that the public has contributed over $1 million to does help his case, because it takes money to fight the system, unfortunately. Yeah, there's Luigi Mangione had originally asked for a public defender. It makes you wonder how he got a highfalutin lawyer to support him. That's something I'm not going to dive into right now, but I just wanted to mention that from TikTok. Any other comments? Because we're about wrapping up. It's been 1 hour. I tend to make these shows about 1 hour because, as you can tell, I get a little flushed in the face. I get a little loud. I get a little shouty. I put a lot of energy, and then I have to go decompress. It actually takes energy for me to get up and be on stage in the center of attention, because I really am, despite what you think, oh, you're a YouTuber, you can't be afraid of a center of attention. Yeah, I'm on a camera. I'm not sitting in front of a room of 500 faces looking back at me. So it's okay. I can pretend like this isn't really happening. Thicker, I finished 3 videos 1 hour long each, part 1, part 2, and part 3 on YouTube. That is something called like, If I Did It, part 1, 2, and 3. I'm making a play on O.J. Simpson's book that he wrote. I didn't, that was called If I Did It. It was a famous book by O.J. Simpson. Not admitting that he did it, but if he did it, if I did it, here's how I did it, and here's why. Really weird thing. And this case is starting to feel a little bit like the I didn't kill Brian Thompson, but if I did, here's why I did it. Kimberly, thank you for watching. I'm long-winded, but I'm glad to hear that you didn't give up on it. One of the things I've been terrified about, and again, this is that people pleaser part of me, is how many people are going to stop following the devil's advocates because they thought that I'm going to say Luigi Mangione had nothing to do with this, and he's been framed. Keep in mind, I haven't said that's not a possibility. Keep in mind also, my position is a person in this country is to be presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And I don't care how good the prosecution cases look, when you need to go to trial and prove it in a court of law. So I'm commenting on things and I'm telling you, yeah, it looks bad. It always looks bad going into trial. And the defense is going to have a whole different story when we go to trial. So don't give up on me, people. If you think, oh God, devil's advocates just threw Luigi under the bus today and said Luigi's the killer, we will talk about what does it mean if he is. What does it mean to us if Luigi Mangione's lawyer changes the defense and says, yeah, he did it, but he's not guilty, and goes for a jury nullification or a hung jury or some other thing? What if that's the case? Are we going to stop talking about the case and go, well, shit, we're out. She said he's guilty, we're done. Or are we going to continue to have the bigger conversations? LB, thank you so much for being a recent subscriber and watcher of my channel. I appreciate that so much. Anything else? Is my YouTube channel under the same name? That's a question from TikTok. My YouTube channel is Devil's Advocates 2024, at Devil's Advocates 2024, all run together. That's my YouTube channel. And that ninja on or is it Ninja? Nija. That Nija, sorry, says over on TikTok, he didn't pull the trigger. There are videos of mine that started in the early days. What if this was a group of individuals? What if Luigi Mangione wasn't the shooter? What if Luigi is player 2 and player 1 was the shooter and Luigi Mangione was just involved but not the actual shooter? I've got all kinds of videos talking about the early theories that this was a group of individuals, and it's deep and it's convoluted, and you should watch those videos if you're even remotely interested and you haven't heard the theory. It's pretty good, I think. I guess I'm tooting my own horn. Renee, thank you for supporting me 100%. I really am worried about how many people I'm going to lose from today, So thank you so much. Oregon loves me. Oh, Dreaded Panda. I wonder if I know Dreaded. Do I know you personally? Or do you just happen to put the dots together that I live in Oregon? But thank you so much from Oregon. So somebody was asking over here, what's jury nullification? This question comes up a lot. Jury nullification is when a jury agrees that a person has committed a crime, but they're still not guilty. Usually that happens when they think that the law itself is unjust, or the law doesn't properly address the problem. And so the jury has it is implied that the jury has the ability to render a verdict, and their verdict is final, and they do not have to explain why their verdict is such. So a jury can say, do we believe that Luigi Mangione shot Brian Thompson? Yes. And what is your verdict? Not guilty. And then the gasp will go up in the courtroom, and nobody has to explain themselves. The judge will not ask the jury to explain how they came to that conclusion. So he's guilty, but he did it, but he's not guilty. They don't have to explain. That's called jury nullification. It's, yeah, he did it, and we're not going to convict him. That's jury nullification. Thank you, Luigi Unchained, by the way, for posting my Devil's Advocates 2024. Luigi, I got to get your other account on YouTube up as a moderator. I keep forgetting. It's something that when I get done, I have to decompress, and then I forget to do it. And then by the time I remember, we're in a show again, and it's hard to do it while I'm in the middle of a show. Dreaded Panda doesn't know me personally. They just know I'm in Oregon. Sweet. Any other comments? I'm about done. It's been an hour. It's been a hot minute. Thank you all for coming in today. I hope that you will consider my content is more suited for long form content. By the way, last night I was on with Ali Benevento, a criminal defense attorney from South Carolina. Ali and I have been texting today about this case and about this legal document. She said I told her, I said, I don't want to overstep my bounds and call you a friend. She goes, no, you can call me a friend. Ali and I are developing this kind of friendship. We text each other. We talk about this case. Ali and I are talking about this case. I'm not going to share with you our opinions on that case now because that's for her to do. But I want to let you know that her and I are in communication about this. We're talking about this case. I talk to her on a regular basis and bring her onto the show. So hopefully you'll follow her. We're going to get her up on YouTube. So she is going to have a YouTube channel as well. But most of my content, what I was going to say is last night during that live with Ali Benevento, we got a restriction on TikTok because Ali Benevento, and if I say what she said again, we're going to get restricted on TikTok again. We were literally just talking about the criminal process and whether people try to get things into prison to prisoners who are there, whether they bring contraband into the prison system. And she, as a criminal defense attorney, was telling you, oh my gosh, you can't believe the ways that they try to get contraband into the prison. That earned us a restriction on TikTok for talking about controlled things, community guidelines violations. On the positive side, it wasn't a strike on TikTok, so my account is in good standing. And all they probably did was make it so that it was now only available for 18 and older. Ali Benevento just stepped in, ladies and gentlemen, on the TikTok side. Please grab Ali Benevento's link if you don't have it. Like and subscribe, follow all. Well, like, subscribe sounds like a YouTube thing. Ali's going to get her butt over on YouTube. I'm going to twist her arm until she gets over there. She needs to be on. She's a long form girl. And so we need to get her over there on YouTube so that she can do the things. But anyways, the point being is that I will continue to simultaneously broadcast on YouTube and TikTok until such time as TikTok kicks me off TikTok. My hope is I don't ever get kicked off TikTok. I love you, TikTok fans. I've got a great audience over here. Most of my most loyal, regular people are over on TikTok. I will be sad if they kick me off TikTok. Having said that, I have to say what I'm going to say. And if TikTok is not going to allow me the freedom of speech to say it over there, when they shut me down, this is where you're going to be. So I encourage everyone to simultaneously follow me on YouTube. And if you prefer TikTok, stay on TikTok until such time as they kick me off. All right. I don't know if Ali is available to jump on or wants to, or if she's just dropping in for a hey, but I'm getting ready to wrap up. If Ali wants to come on, we can do that as a surprise, but she probably is busy. I think she's still in the middle of potentially of her day. I'll give her a second to see if she says anything. How likely is jury nullification? I can't put a percentage on it. I will say this. I asked Ali Benevento on a previous show. I said, hey, Ali, is that a pipe dream, this jury nullification thing? Is that a real thing, or is that just a pipe dream? And she's like, no, that's not a pipe dream. It really could happen. Now, is it likely? Not super likely. No. It sure would send a message, right? If a jury of his peers said, yeah, he did it, but we don't care, or we find it justified, or whatever, again, they don't have to explain why. If they say we agree he did it, but he's not guilty, boy, does that send a conversation out. And will the prosecution say, oh my God, everybody on that jury is a sick, vile human being, like they're kind of doing in that document. But anyways, more likely, I think more likely Ali's position is similar to mine. I'll just speak for myself because Ali's can speak for herself at another time or even now in comments. More than likely before jury nullification, which is a possibility. Let me repeat that again. It is a possibility. It's not a pipe dream. It is a possibility. Is a hung jury. A hung jury meaning that you can't get all of the jurors to agree that Luigi Mangione is guilty. Somebody's going to hold out and say, I don't think he's guilty, and we can stay here until your face turns blue. I'm not convicting him. He's not guilty. And then they will have to basically dismiss that case at the moment and then restart it, and they'll start the trial over with a new jury and see if they can do it. And if that hangs, They could, in theory, retry the trial over and over and over again until they get a jury that's willing to convict. In theory, there's no limit to the number of times that the trial can be retried if there's hung juries. However, it comes at a point of giving up at taxpayers' money. Will taxpayers tolerate trying Luigi Mangione over and over and over again if we have hung juries? So I would say, and my non-legal, non-lawyer opinion, I'm not an attorney, I'm not giving legal advice, I would put my prediction on there's a better possibility that this will be a hung jury the first time around. Will it be a hung jury 2 times? Maybe. And if it does, my prediction would be there won't be a third. They'll do it twice and then they'll just give up. But that's my guess. I'm not an attorney. I don't have a lot of experience. Allie probably could have a better guess on that, but that's my guess. All right, everybody. Hey, everybody. All right. Last thing. I'm out. Thank you for coming today. Again, my content is mostly suited for long form, so I do encourage you to watch on YouTube. I think I'm figuring out how to do that intro video. That's more of a warm-up for the room. So I used to just sit here and talk, and then people would be like, oh my God, this guy's been talking for 10 minutes and still hasn't started his show. Well, it was a warm-up. Now I'm going to warm up the show with a 2-minute countdown and a little video roller, and then we'll get going. So that's my warm-up. So, all right. I don't know if I have anything else to say. That's it, people. Thank you so much on the YouTube side. Thank you so much on the TikTok side. Thank you so much for the content. I hope you like the spread and the layout and how we're trying to improve the graphics and give you a better show. Hopefully, YouTube doesn't kick me off or demonetize my channel for talking about Luigi Mangione. Because again, I'm just talking. No call to action here. It's just conversation. Let's be adults. Let's have conversations. Have a good one.